Hello, my friend Jasper. How are you?
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, very well. I love the way you smile, always full of energy. Yeah?
Thank you very much.
And for my audience, I would like them to know that I have the honor of talking to the youngest NLP trainer in the world ever. Uh, but I would still
I'm
want to.
not. I'm not sure if I'm the youngest one ever. I
Okay,
think. I think. I think Richard might have beaten me to that. I think he was. I don't know what age he was when he started, but
he's 21, I think. That's what he told.
yeah. Well, then he beat me to
Exactly.
it.
But okay, after Richard, probably you are the youngest
I think. I
one.
think. I think at the moment I am one of the youngest trainers training for the Society of NLP internationally. So I think that is true. Yeah.
Excellent. So you were talking about something about your bio. You know, I don't know Dutch, but I know everything how to read your mind.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Okay. Yeah, Jesper, I for the sake of audience, your audience, I would like you to introduce. For my audience, I would like you to introduce yourself, and then for your
Hmm.
audience, I'll introduce myself as well. So
Cool.
let's start with your introduction first. Who is Jesper?
And well, I think you already close to nailed it in what you just said. I think, in the sense that what I am is I am one of the youngest international trainers of the Society of NLP, and I mainly in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. I work a lot with young professionals. So that would be, for instance, in my practitioner course now. I think the average age would be around 32, something like that, and they're all really ambitious people, and this is what I like to work with. So I really like to give people the step up in a professional sense. So I also within NLP, because I don't know what the people watching this video, if they're more into NLP or into persuasion, it's a broad field. What I do a lot is the professional NLP part. So it's really build on the skills that you can really use. I had a business lunch with a lady client of mine 2 weeks ago, and she has her own company. She gives trainings around the world on social media. And I was talking to her, and I was talking about the stuff that we learned from Richard in Orlando, right? And I was trying to explain to her, like, some of those things that we learn are specifically for trainers of NLP, right? You don't use them, or most people won't use them in everyday life, at least not consciously. And I was explaining to her that the thing I'm most passionate about is taking those things you know about your unconscious and turning them into something that people can actually use, even without doing years of studying into NLP, the stuff that we've done, that they can use it immediately. So I really try to condense everything from NLP, which is a lot, into something that they can practically use for their business. For instance, to work with their staff, or to convey a message more easily, or just to be more happy in your work and get promotions without making too much of an effort into forcing it. Yeah, that's a good one, right? I can see
Wow.
your face going, whoa,
Exactly.
yeah.
I
Well, it's the thing I believe in, is that a lot of people ask me, like, how can I get a pay raise in this chat that I'm going to have with my boss? And usually I say, like, the pay raise or the promotion you're getting, you don't get that within that conversation of 1 or 2 hours. You get that within the 1 or 2 years you've already worked there.
Excellent.
So I'm trying to teach people to do their influencing within those years instead of within just one conversation.
Wow, that was quite an extensive explanation of Jasper. But if I'm not wrong, Jasper, your full name is Jasper Geluk, right?
Yeah, that's
That's how
true.
you pronounce it. I mean, I knew your name, but I wanted to put the pronunciation correct.
Didn't we talk about this? I remember that because you worked in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
Amsterdam and around the
yeah,
Netherlands.
yeah.
This is the thing. The first letter of my name, the G. You say it in Dutch. You say it like, which
Geluk.
is, yeah, exactly. It's close to obviously in the Middle East. You also have the,
Yeah,
so it would be geluk.
Geluk. Okay,
Um,
but there's
did we?
about
Yeah.
Netherlands. A lot of people are from D. You know, they're like D cock or D.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
What
That's
does
in the
what does that
Netherlands.
D stand for? Just out of curiosity.
The.
The.
Yeah, just
So it means,
the.
for example, my boss's name was Flo. When I used to work for Shell, my boss's name was Floor Vandenberg.
Yeah.
So Vandenberg means he belongs to Berg, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And Berg would be a mountain. So from the
Ah,
mountain,
from
that
the
would be it.
mountain. Ah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
interesting,
Or belonging to the mountain. Yeah.
interesting. So Jasper, how old are you?
I'm really, really young.
That's why I want to know how old are you?
Yeah. No, I stopped sharing my age, and this was for a specific reason, actually two. And one of my mentors, one of my Dutch mentors, Joost van der Leij, he's one of the master trainers of Richard too. He teaches in Amsterdam, and he told me specifically at one point, and I turned it into a short Dutch video so I could show to people like I didn't choose this myself, but he told me that I should never share my age. But it's the most important reason. I work with a lot of bigger companies, so I told you the ABN AMRO Bank, right?
Yeah.
It's a big bank in the Netherlands. That's one of my clients. I work with their head office, and I work with a lot of big companies. And what I started to notice at one point with one of my clients, not ABN AMRO, but a different one, I told my age. So they asked like, "Oh, what's your age?" I told it, and within no time, everyone within the entire company knew. And I was like, it's okay if they know that I'm young, because this is something you can easily see. But I don't want it to be all about this number, because it's not about the number. It's what I want them to go is like, okay, yeah, this guy's young, and gosh, he also has his stuff, right? He knows his stuff. And the other reason is numbers change. So next year I'll be a year older, and the year afterwards again, and I'm already 5 years older than I was 5 years ago. So I don't want them to stick to one number.
I actually love your approach, Jasper, because this is what I tell people as well. You know, age is a number. You remember we had this guy, the hypnotist of US, Mr. Scott Schmer, and I actually interviewed him last time as well.
Yeah.
And till the interview, even knowing him before that, I did not know he was 54 years old.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
he looks good for 54.
Exactly. You know, so age is just a number, and it's all up here.
Yeah.
You are young or you are old, it doesn't matter. What matters is how you carry yourself, what knowledge you have. You know, I was sorry, I should be asking more questions, but
No,
this is for
sure,
the benefit,
go right
of the
ahead.
benefit of the public. So I was reading my favorite Napoleon Hill the other day. Once again, I love
Outwitting the Devil, right?
Yeah, Outwitting the Devil I have read 3 times. Now I'm reading Think and Grow Rich once again. And I love to read him again and again, because every time you got it. Yeah. See?
And this one even has my underlining things in it.
Excellent.
Yeah, this one is I read from cover to cover. Do read this. If you're watching this and you haven't read this, do read this book.
Exactly. And as well as his second book, which is Outwitting the Devil. I'm a bit lazy reader, so I listen. You know, you can get the audios for both the books. It's an 8-hour audio for Think and Grow Rich, and 6 hours audio for Outwitting the Devil. Going back to the point that he was making about the numbers, you know, the age is a number and stuff. So he said one very, very interesting thing. I'm sure you know that, which is that people get stuck into their own, self-crafted pains. Similarly, self-crafted ideologies about people. He said that education you can get from anywhere in the world. Knowledge you cannot get. That was the difference of Henry Ford. That was the difference of the guy who was 3 inches away from the gold. You know, that was the difference of all these people. Henry Ford was once asked. He was in a courtroom. They had called him for a trial, and he was asked, tell us how many people in that army went there, or what was the numbers of that army.
Because he was someone told him that he was ignorant, right? Ignorant, and he had to testify that he wasn't.
He wasn't, right? So they kept on asking him, and then he said, you know what? All this information I can just get in a minute on a phone call. I don't need to remember these information. This is all numbers. Exactly.
Everyone has this nowadays.
But what I have is the knowledge.
Yeah.
I have the knowledge how to build the best car in the world, and the best we did at that time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. And nowadays, I think that's really true what you're saying, because nowadays anyone has Google at the tips of their fingers, so they can get all information at the tips of their fingers. But not being ignorant also means is that you don't just be a sponge to all the information that is out there, but you actually learn to understand what information is valuable and what isn't. Because if you start reading on the internet and just believing everything, you'll probably be far away from getting somewhere. Because there's a lot of stuff on the internet also that's not true. So I think that's more of a skill that you learn, how to sift through what is right for you. Like I think both of us did. We both went straight for Richard Bandler when we wanted to learn NLP. I immediately saw have our certificates at the back,
we have as well.
our Richard's autographs.
All around.
I still have his new book here.
I love reading it, by the way. This is, yeah, same here. I'm enjoying this book. I'm practicing this book on my children every day, by the way.
Ah, good. But I think the point is that what I started to do when I want to learn NLP is that I started to go around the Netherlands and I started to go through workshops and meeting different trainers. And I saw that most of them, because I had already watched a lot of videos of Richard and of Tony Robbins, for instance. Tony doesn't do NLP, obviously, or not that as much. So my standard was very high. And then I started meeting all these Dutch trainers and I was like, I'm not sure if they're really well practiced in NLP. And now, years later, I know they're not, many of them. So I think it's good to understand to whom you're going if you want to learn NLP. So most people, I had a lady on the phone that wanted to do my course. And one of the first things I told to her was, why are you not just going for Richard in London? Why don't you just go to London? Because she has to have a good reason to want to go to me instead of to Richard, because I think she should go to Richard first. But a lot of people don't want to travel, and then it's fine if they want to learn it from me. But I still think that Richard's better than I am at doing all those things. So I think it's good to, be a bit critical of who you're learning from, because you can just Google what NLP is on Wikipedia, but I think you won't have as much of a depth of understanding as if you spend a week with you, for instance. You're very knowledgeable on NLP, or with any of the other trainers that are well taught in NLP. Yeah,
I think it is more of, because what I have understood about NLP is not about education, is not even about knowledge. It is more of an experience. Because when you learn from, I actually bought a couple of online courses just to see how different online courses are run. So I thought I will also make a course of my own. And after doing 2-3 different online courses, I have scrapped the idea of making an online course. You know why?
Very good.
Because it's an experience.
Yeah.
You can't do
and
that.
You have to be dang good at making an online course if you want them to get the full experience, but they won't. Something I'm still contemplating on doing is because I'm making a few exercise books for the people in the Netherlands, so they have kind of a standard to exercise by, like to go back to those books that I'm creating for them. But I'm thinking of still maybe if they buy enough of those books to give them a free course or a free weekend with them, because if they come to me or to you or to any qualified trainer and they spend some time with them, the amount of learning that you can do in those 3 hours far exceeds maybe 40 hours of self-study. And it has to do also with the famous story I think Steve Andreas wrote in the beginning of Frogs into Princes, right? One of those first NLP books. You probably know this story where there's this big factory, and it's this big long-winded story about this factory producing stuff for millions every day, and then it breaks down, and it's broken down for a few days, and they're losing money by the bucket loads. And they get in this expert, and this expert comes in, walks around for less than an hour, takes this wrench and just bam, whacks on one of the pipes, and the entire factory starts working again. And then he bills them for like $10,000 or something. And this factory guy, he says, like, you were only here for an hour. Why did you bill us for $10,000? Please state where that $10,000 is for. So he makes the bill again, and he says, like, $100 for my time and $9,900 for knowing where to tap.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also doing it, because I like this difference between knowledge and knowledge applied, which I think is much more important. Is I have this friend, and he has his brother is really he studies at this technical university in the Netherlands. I think he already studied close to 10 years now, and he's still not done. But he's doing some great stuff. He's producing new batteries, so that's good, like for the Teslas and stuff like that. But they were driving home from a holiday, and one of the lamps at the front of the car was broken, and he and his buddy spent the entire 7-hour trip back home contemplating on what might be wrong with the lamp and how they might fix it. And then their younger brother, who was like this practical guy, he stopped school after he was 16, when they got home, he just got out of the car and fixed the lamp within 5 minutes. And it was like, and then you can think, or maybe he even did it in the gas station along the way, and those guys were still talking about it after. But you know, this is the difference. You don't even have to have that much knowledge if the knowledge you have is pure and you actually apply it. You can go much faster, and this is actually the trick how I've been able to go this fast within my age, because you were talking about that. What I have happened to me a lot, and in the past few years it has increased because I'm getting more visible now, is that colleagues of mine that might be 10 or 20 years older, like yourself, but then in the Netherlands, and I know the companies I work for, and they come to me and they say, like, how is it possible that you are already working with all those big companies? Because they've been working very hard to get those clients. And I think there's two things they miss. I think one thing they miss is that I have been working at this for very long. I've been working for close to 10 years on this, which means I started when I was
10 years old.
Yeah, when I was even younger. And but the other thing I think they miss is what you start to do if you take whatever knowledge and experience you have and you actually apply it in the right places.
That's right.
You start going in light speed. And this has been happening to me for the past years. And it's amazing how quickly things change within last year and the year after that.
Which leads me to an interesting question, Jasper, because I was thinking of how I will bring that up, but you already helped me by bringing it up.
Right.
What made you start this at such an early age, where children are mostly fascinated with the cartoons and probably going out and playing squash and stuff like that? So what? Yeah. And number one, and number two, second part of the same question is, how did your family take it that instead of studying regular class school, you have been doing all this crazy work which at that time you were not even aware of that much?
What helps there is something that Richard also taught, that when he was starting out, he also worked with some young guys in school, and he sometimes still tells this story. And what he used to tell them, like if these kids were like, I don't want to go to school and those types of things, he would tell them, like, if you are so smart and so cool as you pretend to be, at least be smart enough to fool your teachers into giving you high grades. And this is something that I completely went for. So I did actually go to university. So I did go to school. I did do all those things, and at the same time, when I was doing it, I was optimizing. So I did the Alfredo-Pareto principle, the 80-20. So I made sure that I did, like, within 20% of the effort, I got 80% of the grades. So I got university with 6s and 7s in a scale to 10, but never like 8s or 9s, because I used the time that I had left to study NLP at the same time. But my parents, I guess, they only understood fully what I was doing because I've been an entrepreneur for longer. Also, I've had a lot of ventures, which is good. You can go in light speed also when you push yourself to do the stuff you don't know yet. And I've always pushed myself to do that. But I think my mother only got this idea, I guess, 5 years ago or something, when I was reading a book of Richard Branson. And I was just reading it there, and it was laying about, and she picked it up and started reading a few pages. And did you read it also?
Yeah, Virgin King.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you start reading those books, it's really it's enticing when you start reading a few pages. So she said, like, can I hang on to this book? So I said, yeah, I'll finish it first, and then I'll give it back to you. And she read it cover to cover, I think within a week or something. And she called me up and she said, wow, I finally understand what you're doing.
Revelation.
Yeah, by no standard am I starting another Virgin. By no standard, and I'm not as productive as Richard Branson was in his younger years. But I don't have that as a goal. I'm following a different Richard's path.
Yeah, you still are following one of the Richards, right? There are actually many Richards: the Braveheart, the Virgin King, and the Bandler.
Yeah.
like John Lavelle said, Richard Randler.
Richard Randler, yeah. But I looked up the URL. I think it's still available though, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But no, so she only just discovered it. The other part of your question, I think, is important to mention because it's true that especially now in the last few years, I'm more visible in the Netherlands. More people know me, and people come up to me and they say, like, "Oh wow, how can I get this motivated?" and stuff like that. But it has two parts. Before I was like getting all this quote unquote success, I still don't think I'm like way successful, but it's at one point other people start telling you that you're successful. And this is up to you to decide when this is the point for you. But anyway, I think they kind of, before that happened, what I used to do, for instance, when I was in university, I seldomly went to parties. I did do that when I was still in school, though. But when I was in university, instead of partying and doing nothing with my life, I was in my student room, which was a tiny room. It was, I think, about the size of this room, or maybe even smaller. And I was on my bed with my laptop studying NLP. I found this old NLP course from NLP Colorado, the guys up there, and they have this drawn out practitioner of 30 days. And they had put a camera in. They put a camera there, and it was about 80 hours of video. And I watched those 80 hours 2 times there, and that is a lot of hours of video watching. And then I started doing some exercise. I started finding videos of Richard and just going in depth in that, while the other guys were still wondering randomly about. However, the other part is, I'm in no way a saint. Like, I really dislike the holier than thou kind of idea that some people do. Because, as you said, like a lot of young people, they like watching cartoons and stuff like that. I loved watching cartoons. I watched a lot of cartoons. I watched like every single South Park episode at least 2 times, maybe 3 times. I still do watch shows like Family Guy, American Dad, just to relax and to get that stuff out of the way. I think the stuff that I don't do is hesitate too much, which is something that a lot of people cost them a lot of time. They hesitate about maybe changing their job, maybe changing their life. And I see this a lot in my courses with people that come to me that they have been hesitating for years, many times, about a career switch or about a switch of partner. I have someone in my course now, I won't tell you their name, but it's a lady, and she was in a relationship for 7 years. Oh. 4 of those 7 years, she wanted to get out of the relationship, but she was afraid to make the decision. So she had 3 years of the relationship that she liked, and then 4 years not wanting to decide to get out. And that is a wasted 4 years.
Exactly.
And I think if people start to listen more to themselves, because you have an intuition that works, and if you start to listen to your intuition, which is your unconscious, and you hear your unconscious, that tells you the right things, and you start taking action on it, because that's a part of knowledge from yourself, and then you start to apply it in the right places, I think then you start going in light speed, and that is something that I've been doing. How it start? You ask. You do interrupt if you have any other questions.
No, I was so mesmerized already by your hypnotic that I was enjoying it.
Very good. That's the stuff that I just had in my practitioner course. I had a weekend going through. This was last weekend. I had the weekend of my practitioner course where we went through the Milton model, right, with all the hypnotic patterns, and it's 3 days. So on Friday and Saturday we did other stuff, but I used a lot of the Milton model, so they would unconsciously start to pick up on it. And then on Sunday we went through all those patterns, and it's lovely when people start to open their eyes to all those patterns, because the world does open up that way.
Yeah, no, see, I fully agree with you on this thing that we all tend to live in our own cocoons. We don't want to take decisions, and then we want to say, "Oh, it's God. Oh, it's my luck." We love to blame.
You push responsibility to other people.
Exactly. Interesting thing is, Jasper, that I read this in Napoleon Hill. I've read this in Richard. I've read this in a lot of books from a lot of authors. Even Napoleon's mentor, the famous Andrew Carnegie.
Andrew, I got that one. I got it down there. Andrew Carnegie's biography. Okay. Yeah.
So all these guys have said this, that people who have been successful or people who have achieved something are the ones who take control of their own destiny, of their own decision making, of their responsibility of their own actions.
Yeah. And also, if you screw up, which sometimes is hard. Yeah.
And I was surprised. Actually, I wouldn't say surprised, but I was happily aware when I got aware of this fact that Bible says the same.
Yeah.
Quran The Muslims book, our Muslim book says the same.
Yeah.
Torah says the same.
Yeah.
That Saturn, for example, whatever name we want to give him, he blamed God.
Mm-hmm.
So when he blamed God, he became a victim. And when he became a victim, when you are a victim, then it's not in your control. So anything that is happening, I am sitting here because Jasper is putting single cable in his ear. If he was putting two cables, I would be jumping, right? So it's not, I'm a victim of Jasper putting single cable.
So now I have control of Muhammad Ali there with this one. I can either
see,
and I can do this so often until you say, screw it, I'll just decide myself.
Exactly. So even the stories, because all these religious books, interesting fact, I was thinking when we were doing that course, I found out it's all about storytelling, and you do the strategy installations during a story, nested loops and all these things. All the religious books are stories. Interesting stories, right? So all mythologies, Greek mythology, any mythology you want to take it, Hindu mythology, they're all stories and metaphors. So that is how our brain works. And if we start controlling our own self with our own brains, our own actions, that is the time where we will reach to the zenith of success, if you want to call it. And which you mentioned about not being successful, I do want to add something here.
Sure.
To me, success is an equilibrium. Equilibrium inside and equilibrium outside. So whichever time you reach that equilibrium, that moment is the moment of success. Whenever that equilibrium goes away, you are beyond success, or you are ahead of success. So whenever you have that equilibrium, every moment of your life which you are enjoying and being happy about, within that equilibrium is the moment of your success, and that is how you define your own success. And I must say, you have done a tremendous job. But I do have a question for you here after my small talk. In fact, I don't know if your audience would like to know about me as well, then we can discuss later. But I do have a question, Jasper. Why NLP? Why not some other field?
Well, for a long time, I didn't want to do NLP. So that's that's a very good question. Also, you asked me when did I start with NLP, and that's a tricky question too, because NLP, I don't think it's this. It's not a thing. It's something that specifically Richard made up at some point. He made it up, which means it wasn't there before, and it just went. Now it's there. So it's and it's basically, well, the people that, if you watch this, you probably know what NLP is, or maybe you'll Google it, or you go to Muhammad Ali or to someone who will teach you what NLP is. But it's not as much about what NLP is. It is a combination of a lot of things that work socially, in your unconscious, social dynamics, leadership, all those stuff. And I was interested in all of those things, and I think it just got more and more throughout my growing up. At one point, even learning, like my mother told me, I was asking her, like, hey, I'm curious that maybe when I was a baby, if I did specific things and probably loads of babies do this won't be special. But what she said is that I was so eager to take the next step. For instance, when I was like in the crib and I couldn't walk, I would all the time be standing with the bars, like getting myself to be higher than I couldn't walk yet then, but I wanted to get myself there. But there are other things too, like when I was, I guess, 8 or 9, I used to memorize cabaret shows of famous comedians. And I would memorize the entire show, and then I would perform it during the breaks at school for all the different classes.
So you've been a natural.
Well, I trained in being a natural when I was young. So I believe you can learn any skill. But I was very young when I started to learn this skill. And so that, and then another point I think that was very important was we had a dog when I grew up, a Jack Russell Terrier, which is a very, it's a tiny dog, but they have a lot of character. Let's put it like that. And we didn't know, but he was a little bit abused when he was younger. They had a guy there. A young guy my age actually he was, so he must have been 7 or something when it was a small dog, and he used to play quite roughly with it. So the dog was kind of traumatized, and that came out during the years that he was with us. And at one point I was probably around 12 then, so the dog was a few years old, And my parents were just fed up with it because he would start biting and growling out of nowhere, and they had no clue where it came from. So they were ready to give him an injection and be done with it. And I was around 12 then, and I was like, I don't want this. This is my dog. I don't want this to happen. And I made a deal with my parents, and they said, like, okay, you can keep the dog, but it's your dog from now on, and you have to take care of him and make sure that he behaves. So I really dove in there. So I had some leverage to do this, you can imagine. So I was reading books on dogs, and I went to a course with the dog, and I learned about not to a Richard course with the dog, but to a dog training course. And I learned about body language in dogs. So what I started to find out, that it wasn't out of nowhere when he started biting and making a scene. You could easily see whenever he started to feel threatened, even minutes before it would get out of hand. And in this way, I could turn that situation around, and he lived a very happy life. I think eventually he got to be 16 or 17 before he passed away. And then when I started seeing this in dogs, I started noticing that people are very much like dogs too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can see a lot on people, and this is a fun exercise. I'm not sure if I told you this exercise. I do this in my practitioner course. I get people to sit in pairs, and one of the two will think of two people. One person they really like, and one person they don't like at all. And then they have to. The only thing they do is think of one of those two and count outward to 10. So the only thing the other person hears is the person saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 9, 10. And then they think of the other person, and aloud they go to 10 again. And the other person then has to kind of think which of the two calling to 10 was the person they liked and which one was the person they didn't like. And it's amazing how much stuff you can read, but you only hear them and see them say 1, 2, 3, 4 to 10. But you can see so much in their body language, in how they pronounce it, on what they're thinking. And this is how I like to train people, not in like this woo-woo spiritual kind of reading someone, but how this really works, because it's just a skill, reading body language. You see a lot of people that claim that they can speak to people that are deceased. It's very possible that some people do, but what I've found that a lot of people that I've researched that claim to do that are actually very good at reading body language and getting voice intonation patterns and getting feelings from, if you touch someone, you can feel tension at points. And if you start to process that and calibrate that unconsciously, and you make this, you consciously train this to be an unconscious skill, you can get so much from people, and you can get to be like a mind reader, but you're not reading the mind, you're reading the physical component of the mind. Yeah.
No, which is a very interesting point. As you know, that I am going to go for my body language master trainer in a couple of days' time. And I will also be doing lie detection and stuff. So I've been working on it for the last 2 years, coming to that level. And just today, I'll tell you an interesting story. Just today, I had a guy. I remember I told you that before we started, even I discussed with you that I was getting lessons on how to get better lighting for my camera and stuff. So this guy, he was sitting here, and he said he got his license after about 2.5 years. And I asked him, what is the reason why it took you so long? He said, when I sat in the car, I had a fear that somebody is come and hitting me. Another car or someone will come and just hit me and I'll have an accident. And this was the reason every time I sat in my exam, he gave 7 exams. He said, every time I gave an exam, I failed because I just simply stopped the car and I said, I cannot do it. So he took a break, and I had given him a session before as well on this. So today I asked, he got his license last week. So I said, how did he pass this one? He said, every dog has his day, so it was that day of mine being a dog. I said, no, that's not true. But what do you feel about the car driving now on the road? He said, I have a license, but I still have the fear. I said, okay. So I did a little bit of very, very, very small mind game with him. And I basically, first give him that anchoring technique. And I used that mind imaging thing with him. And after that, when we finished that technique, that session, which was not even a real session because there were people sitting around, so I was just guiding him. And what I found out was that his fear was not his fear. He had an accident 8 years ago when he was driving before in another country where he had the license.
Yeah.
And because of that accident, he had disassociated himself from the function of driving. So everything he was watching was from a third person, that an idiot is sitting in the car and he's going to get hit.
Yeah.
So after we established that fact, I brought him back into his own body and I said, okay, now drive. And he was perfectly fine. He said, I don't feel that fear anymore. So there's small programs, as you know very well, which are going on, and people are not aware about these programs. I want to ask you another very interesting question before we switch.
I wanted to make sure that people get this, because I think your story is very interesting for two reasons. I think the one is that you're doing so much in your head. Like if you're envisioning seeing yourself in a car crash, I mean, that doesn't help. But a lot of people do similar things in different situations, like when they're thinking of going to talk to their boss or having a conversation with a client, they think of how it's going wrong.
That's right.
Instead of thinking of how it is going in a right way and then getting into your body and just do it. Exactly. And the other thing that came past, and maybe you start picking up, these things are everywhere, that the hesitation cost him years and a lot of trial and error, because it wasn't that he wasn't able to do it, but he was hesitating about it, of taking action. So this time he actually did it and it went fine because it changed. And so hesitation is good to change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What was your question?
This one, when we were talking about these changes and stuff, I wanted are you only restricting yourself to NLP based training, or you have some other skills other than NLP that you are into?
No, I have zero other skills than NLP.
So you are so good in NLP that you don't need any other skill.
Yeah, I'm not able to do anything else. I'm not able to tie my shoes. I can't make a sandwich. I need people for all that stuff. I can only just sit and do NLP.
Okay, I will ask you a very interesting question, which was asked to me by.
I hope people understand that it's not true, but go on. Yeah, I do a lot of other stuff too.
Before we went for this course with Digital Bandler, I had. I had a contract with a company which has about 80 employees. It's a Turkish sweet selling retail setup. They wanted me to do the training for their 80 staff. So when I came back, I sent him the copy of my trainer's license, and I said, I'm a licensed trainer now, so it will be more fun now in doing that. So he's a Turkish guy. His immediate response was, sorry, if you're talking about teaching NLP, we are not going to work with you. I said, wow. What happened? What is going on? And this guy also happens to be my neighbor. I mean, a couple of doors away. So I went to him and I said, what is the issue? Why you even so, like, suddenly it's like a change of the heart. So he asked me a question. He in fact made a comment, which is my question to you.
Sure.
Which comment was, in Turkey, in my own family, 4 families divorced. Each one of them had the similar pattern. Each one attended NLP course. I was like, okay, so how many days of course did they attend? 4 days each. Okay, which means this was not a true NLP trainer. 4 days you cannot do a practitioner, that we all know. Secondly, I said, who were the trainers? I mean, were they from Society of NLP? No, I don't know this much detail, but they were talking about NLP.
I said, okay. Well, I heard another creepy story of an NLP trainer, a couple in the course divorcing after the NLP course, and then the trainer started hooking up with the lady.
That's more interesting. So his fear was, he said that when people do NLP, they believe that
they believe they can do anything and that they can just make their own lives happy, and that's
exactly. Yeah. So I before I get your answer, I'll tell you the story I told him of one of my own clients.
Sure.
She had done an NLP course with somebody else. I would not we are not taking names here, so it doesn't matter. Sure. So when she was doing my course, we talked about eye patterns and visuals and modalities and stuff. So she said, you know what? When I read this and with that person, I immediately went and divorced my husband. Oh, really? Why did you divorce your husband? And she said, because I am visual, he was auditory, and his eyes were always moving in the wrong direction, and he was always trying to hide things, and so we could never go along. I mean, I was visual, he was auditory. So I said, what if you had a child who was kinesthetic? What would you do? Would you say, "Oh no, sorry,
bring it to an institution"? Yeah, just
take this.
sorry,
So,
I can handle that.
so
Yeah.
I said to her, to this Turkish friend of mine, I said it was not the fault of NLP. It was the understanding that trainer gave to this lady, or the lady, the way I'm sure the trainer would not have had a bad intention, but the way that lady took that training knowledge and did not clarify it, probably that would be the reason. So we cannot say, like for example, TV is bad. You can watch porn on the TV, and you can watch, NLP's videos on the TV, right? So it's not the TV which is at fault. This was my comment to him, which actually calmed him down, and now he is ready again to look into doing NLP stuff.
Yeah.
What would have been your answer to such a person?
Yeah, well, I think there are two things there. I think one of them is that it's also in the Netherlands, and I think across the world there is. So that would not be for this specific case, but I think that a lot of people know people with bad experience with NLP. So that might be the experience you're talking about, but other people, they just have this aunt that did NLP, and now they are just talking all the time about it, and in a way that is not helpful. A lot of the times that is done, as you rightfully say, because they had a trainer that is not very well equipped in NLP. And the problem with that is when you start speaking about your unconscious and about all the stuff that's going on without you knowing it, it's very easy to say as a trainer, well, whatever lacking skill the trainer has, they just say like, oh, but that is something that is unconscious, so it's okay. Or they say like, if they introduce something like for instance with the Milton model, it's very tricky to explain the Milton model in a way that people start using it in the right way. Because if you just explain to them how to use hypnotic language, some people tend to become really weird and robotic.
That's right.
I have this guy in the Netherlands. I went to a course of his, and he trained with, for instance, with Igor Ledachovsky, who was a brilliant hypnotist. I'm going over to Igor in Dublin in September to do his course. And Igor does very well, but this guy I met, he sounded like a hypnotic robot. So when he was talking, he was like, yes, and I know you feel good now because there is and it was like, God. And then he started teaching people, and then if they started asking questions like, well, isn't that a bit weird? He would say, yes, but that is how hypnosis works. So it's kind of like pushing the responsibility for those trainers that don't have that much skill, and they just say, oh, but that is how NLP works. Yeah. But that's not true. It's their lacking of skill, and then they produce this whole generation of people that train with them that go out and talk with other people and say like, oh, but you are supposed to tell people, oh, you are avisual and you can only do stuff visually. And then they say like, oh, but that's BS. And then they go, no, it's NLP. And then very easily you get BS and NLP in the same place. What I like to tell people in my courses is I tell them like, there is this specific type of person that went to a communication training or NLP training for that matter, and they start correcting people around them on their communication skills. So they go like, oh, you shouldn't communicate like that because I did a course and I know how you should communicate, which to me always is a perfect example of someone who is not able to communicate very well. So I think whatever you teach, whether it be theory or it will be practice with the skills of NLP, I think you should start using it in a way that it's fluent. Because if you start correcting people and you start being let's say an a-hole about it, I think you didn't get the right message. And so that's point one. And the other point is that in many cases, I don't even say that much that I work with NLP, especially when people start with me. I work on social dynamics, communication. Oftentimes within the first few workshops that people do with me, I don't even teach them the depth that NLP has, because I don't want to send them off with this weird depth theory kind of thing in their head when they're not even able to apply the first few things. So probably what I would do in the case that you told me about your friend is I would probably tell him that he's right, because he is. Oftentimes NLP trainers are really wacko, and I would also tell him a similar story I told you, that I have to tell people, most groups I have in front of me, I have to talk about this issue, and I tell them like, what is NLP, and at least one or two will come up with bad examples. But I want those out of the way so they understand that that is something different than NLP. That is NLP practiced poorly.
That's a good one. NLP practiced poorly. I like this one.
And the other one, I think, is that people give NLP too much credit. Especially trainers that have a very big ego, they tend to, and a lot of trainers do, which I think sadly they do, they have a very big ego. They think they can change everyone and anyone by the drop of a hat. And I think the real power is never in the NLP trainer. It's always in the person themselves.
That's right.
If you sit in a group with a person that has the best relationship they have, they're happily married, and they have this loving partner and this loving things they do together, no NLP trainer in the world will be able to convince them long term to change that.
That's
because
correct.
their unconscious will be there for the benefit. Your unconscious is always there to help you. So what usually is the case, but I don't know the specific stories of your friend. I don't know what was going on there. And in his family, I have no clue. But usually when stuff like that happens, but in your case it might be different, it's people that are already wanted to go through a divorce or change, and then you get to the hesitation part. And then my question would be, are they happy? And if they are happy now and they needed, they could have gone to a yoga class probably and decided that because of the yoga class they wanted to divorce.
Yeah,
that is something that happens a lot too. So I don't think NLP is that powerful that it can change people without them wanting to. I think where NLP is powerful, that it can change you into doing the stuff that you actually want to do.
Excellent.
Now.
I like this now. And So anyway,
so get up your butt, stop watching this video, and do some stuff.
now.
Yeah, now.
Before I ask any other question, do you want to ask anything?
Well, and maybe if you're now watching the unedited version, you've been very patient and going through some stuff. So now you can listen to the bio. But maybe we can also change it, and I might change this video a little bit to make a shorter version. So maybe you can talk very shortly about what you do, what has been your journey, and then if I make a shorter version of this video, I can just take that and put it in a place that I think this will work.
Okay, that's one. As you know, my name is Muhammad Ali, not the boxer, so I don't do boxing anymore. I've stopped it years ago.
He's at the moment he can talk more fluent than Muhammad Ali could at the end of his career.
Okay, no, that's right. I started off my career as a mechanical engineer, worked in the oil and gas, Shell and Schlumberger, a couple of companies, oil and gas companies. Then I moved into retail, did about 13 years of retail. And during those 13 years of retail, last 3 years I started, getting involved into NLP, and now it's been more than 5 years that I am into not only NLP, but I am also a body language trainer. I am I do pain management. I do sports coaching. I'm a cricket coach, qualified coach, and other than that, what you can say, proudly put myself as a career coach, because I'm also an author of a small booklet called Job Seeker's Handbook. I help people in finding jobs. I'm a philanthropist. I do a lot of philanthropic work. So this is what my generic aspect is.
Well, and it might be, if it's okay if I compliment you on that, because I think that what I see in working with you, I mean, we met in Orlando at Richard Bandler, that what I see is a lot of people that do the stuff that you do, they only know a lot. So they did a lot of courses and they have a lot of information in their head. But what I like in you is that you also apply it. So I can see that you don't only, and this is why I like these chats with you, is that you apply the stuff that you know. And so compliments to you. I like to see that. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I can now sit like that.
now you can change your body language.
Yeah, now I am the girl. Anyway, so I still, you have reached that level, and I still am taking a bit of my time to do my first practitioner, which I am planning now in October. In fact, I'm teaming up with one of our colleagues, Mir. I'm sure you remember him. With me. So the idea is that we'll launch our first NLP practitioner program in Islamabad in Pakistan, which is our home country for both of us. Home ground, like you are doing in your home ground. So home ground is always, charity has to begin at home. I strongly believe with all the the philanthropist work I'm doing, and with all these other techniques that I'm using, I strongly believe that it is people like you and me who have to bring change. Because as you said, having knowledge,
Yeah.
education is one thing, knowledge is
Yeah.
second, but
And for
applying
the
it.
person watching and listening this, it's also a person like you.
Yeah.
So it's not just the two of us. I mean, it's
Exactly.
it's people like you
Like
who are
you.
listening to this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you, each one of you, I would say, put it
Yeah.
like that, each one of you has to take your own responsibility. And
Definitely.
I strongly believe, practice, preach that
Yeah.
the only person I want you to change is you,
Yeah.
not anybody else. Because when
Yeah.
you change, the whole perception changes, the whole
Yeah.
perspective changes,
Yeah.
and then you start seeing. It's the same thing as one of the examples that I give. That if I give you a glass, and I actually have that glass in my training sessions, and then when I do corporate trainings, I'm doing a lot of corporate trainings, one-to-one sessions. In fact, tomorrow, as you know, that I am most of a sports coach, sports
Yeah.
mental coach. My
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow I have two things. In the morning, I have a session with a 13-year-old tennis player who is an
Mm-hmm.
exceptional tennis player. However,
Mm-hmm.
he chokes when he reaches the tournament. So he loses
Mm-hmm.
his first match in every tournament. But before that tournament starts, he is the best player. So
Yeah.
we are going to make him cross that barrier.
Yeah.
And in the
Great.
evening, my cricket team is playing the finals of the tournament, for which I am going to be with them. So I do a lot of this.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much. These kids are very excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually they are the only team unbeaten till date. They've in the whole tournament. So it's a big thing for them.
That's what you get when you get this guy as a coach.
Thank you. So basically, when I'm saying I preach is that you need to be responsible for your own actions,
Yeah.
and you need to do it now. I mean,
Yeah.
procrastination. If you keep on procrastinating, it will
Yeah.
never happen. You know
And that's, I think, also the thing. When I start to change and you see me changing, you decide to change yourself.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So most of the time when I'm doing these sessions, by the way, I don't know if I told you or not, I have not only decided, but I have started. I've already written 2 chapters of my book.
Oh, great.
I've started 3 books,
Hmm.
and that's a bit too much. But one book I'm gonna finish in 3 years.
I'm working on 3 also now,
Oh,
so
so
that's
then we are same.
yeah, that's okay.
The first book I have started is called From Ordinary to Extraordinary: Life of an
Hmm.
Ordinary Man. That is my autobiography.
Hmm.
Because people
Hmm.
talk about, I believe, and that's what I've written in that book. I've already done 4 chapters of this book.
Hmm.
People talk about, oh, Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Every individual is a superhuman.
Yeah.
We all have our own experiences. We all deserve to write our autobiographies. So
Yeah.
based on this, I was telling this to people, so I thought, okay, I need to do it myself, and to prove
Hmm.
it to them that I am also special and a superhero for somebody, right? Then
Yeah.
from there, second book I'm doing is, which is very interesting topic, is called Why Not to Fail.
Hmm.
People write books on success. I'm writing a book on failure.
Great.
And third one is the talking series, which is my passion
Uh-huh.
of helping
Yeah,
people.
you talked to me about
Yeah, I
that.
told you
Yeah.
about that. So these 3 books are the talking series, and my autobiography will finish in about 6 months'
Hmm.
time. But Why Not to Fail will take me at least 3 years, because I plan to do more of research on the actual successful failures of the world.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's very good, and I think that's the there is this thing. Let's see if I can. Ah, yeah, I can do it here. This is my book, but this is one of the books that I have laying about. This is the one I already made, um, but this is one that I started to put in a frame, so I can write something in here. A lot of people think that what success looks like is like this,
yeah.
right? So you start there and then you go there, and maybe you already know what this looks like, but then people say like what success actually looks like is like that,
That's
right?
true. That's
Yeah,
true.
I think the point is that even more important than this, because people tend to think like, oh yeah, it's this, is that when people talk about their success, it looks like this because they say like, yeah, I was first there, then there, then there, then there. So people think it has to be as straight line as that, even though it works like this. But the other important part is is that at any point along this line where you are, it will probably feel like a mess.
Exactly.
So in stumbling towards success, you're starting to fail a lot. And you have to fail this much to learn where you do want to go. And then only afterwards you can tell this story. But I think you should start being happy with your life, even if it is like this, because it is for most people. And actually, if you have a life like this, you have no clue where you actually are at, because it probably won't be like this. You only believe it is like this.
You know, which reminds me of something which is very interesting. I was listening to a talk, and I got an idea from that talk, which is, you know, have you ever seen you've seen oscilloscope? When we talk, we use the oscilloscope in the training, but if you see, when you go to a hospital or you see the heartbeat, it is always like a curve, right? What happens when somebody dies, someone somewhere dies, his heartbeat comes like a straight line. So if your life is straight line, you are one of the dead. Life has to be like this. It has to have peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys, because that's how you learn and grow. You learn and grow. You learn and grow. You know, you can't just be stagnant. Then you are dead.
Yeah,
you know?
It's true.
So simple.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were talking about what my journey is. I mean, that's basically my brief journeys. At the moment, I'm working with, I'm just pitching to Samsung. I'm working with another couple of companies as their trainer. I'm doing a lot of mentorship.
And what type of stuff do they hire you for? So what is the things that they want you to do for them?
Mostly what I'm doing is soft skills. However, the way I don't go out with a menu card. I tell them I have a la carte. You tell me what your issue is, and I'll make a training for your particular issue, because it doesn't work. There is no recipe one for all. Every human in your individual is different. In your individual in your team is different. So we have to have something which is a generic mix, but then every flavor has to be added. You know. So in fact, which reminds me that I'm doing mentoring with the JA. You know, the Junior Achievement. There's a big organization around the world. So I'm doing mentorship with one of the schools here in of the local girls, of Emirati girls, UAE girls, and one of the best classes I've ever mentored. I've mentored with a lot of classes, but this was one of the best. So these girls, being the best, being very methodical, being very good, they were so confident that I was really, you know, thinking that I would not have to do any much work with them. But what happened was that when the time has come close to deliver the final speech. Everybody, no sir, she will go, sir, she will go, sir, she will go. I said, girls, what is going on? Then I started calling girls, the ones I knew who would pick. You know, said, okay, come here, perform. Come here, perform. And then I started giving them tips, the 45 angle, and you know how to bring your make your voice more deeper, deep breathing, and all those different techniques of charisma enhancement. So I started giving them those techniques, a little bit of format, you know, stuff like that. And they were like, oh, this is all rocket science. I said, no, this is common sense.
Yeah, it's actually really easy.
Yeah, and these girls, after 1.5 hours of session, you could have, if I wish you, I could have recorded those, because they were not allowed to record. You could have seen their expressions, the messages they are sending me. Jasper, they are like, sir, you have changed our whole outlook. You know, we look now things at a completely different level. We thought we could not present, but now we are the best presenters. You know, so
I might have a question for you, and this would probably be interesting for my audience too. So just to give a short introduction to that, so I can kind of get that as a bit for. You're my Dubai connection. We're gonna do we're gonna work together in a few months.
That's correct.
And see if we can start a seminar in Dubai on NLP. And you're very knowledgeable on NLP, but also body language and career building. And specifically, career building is something that a lot of the people I work with in the Netherlands are interested in. So I wanted to get kind of an international perspective on this, because you have worked a lot internationally. You also worked in the Netherlands. You worked for Shell Oil. What would be, after all these years of working and now working on NLP and mentoring and coaching and training people where you are, what would be your most important piece of information and knowledge for a young person, so around 30, that just started out their career and is now thinking like, how am I going to build this into a life that I want to live? What would be your piece of information or your piece of knowledge for them?
Jasper, I wish I could give the answer which people would like to listen and love to listen, but I will tell them what I have done. And my honest opinion, my all throughout my life, what I have done, I've learned when I started my career. I'll tell you an interesting story. When I started my engineering degree, I was able, because we have rankings within the engineering university, that electrical engineering was the highest rank, then civil, then mechanical. So students were going to different levels, not based on their interest, but based on their rank. I had the rank to go to electrical, but I chose to go to number 3, which was mechanical. That was my choice, my passion, right? When we moved from there, I went into the oil and gas field. The day, and I'm saying it bluntly, the day I realized I have lost my passion, I resigned. I preach this and I've practiced this.
So what is important about that? Because I think there's a lot important in that. The day you decided, you resigned. What is important about that?
Follow your passion and take a decision. Do not hesitate. Because if you linger on, I'll ask you a simple question. If somebody has a broken leg, would he continue to linger on with that leg? He would definitely get an operation done, right?
Yeah.
It will not be a matter of decision at that time. It would be now. So the day you find out that your passion, and by the way, there is a very big misconception which I have found in a lot of people. They believe passion has to be the same the whole life. No, passion can change over time. I had passion for engineering, I had passion for oil and gas work, I had my passion for retail work. 13 years, I was one of the best. I had 70 outlets, 70 shops in the retail industry in the whole region. Okay, today I am using that knowledge to be a retail consultant. I'm actually also doing a retail consultancy with two very big brands here in the Middle East. Okay, so I can still leverage on what I have gained. It doesn't mean that that knowledge is wasted. But
so that means you don't have to worry like, is this what I'm choosing now something I want to do the rest of my life? You can just choose what makes you happy right now.
Right now, because I tell people, live in this. This is now. This is now. When your fingers clip, this is now. Before the clip is past, and after the clip is future. So live in now. And then the day I decided, I sold or in fact, I will not even say sold. I closed my company, my retail company, year and a half ago, without even thinking what I'm going to do, because I knew I've spent that 1.5 year as well to gain knowledge of my training and stuff, to build up and I'm still studying, as you know, that I'm also still going to do my body language master trainer. I'm going to do some other, this is another year, and I'm telling you, Jasper, December 31st, 2018, I'll be one of the best trainers in the world. Because that's my passion. So decide now.
Let me get back to because you said not thinking, but I think it's good for people to understand that you do something else when you're not thinking. So what are you listening to when you're not thinking? So what is your advice if it's not like the thinking yourself in a corner? What are you doing? What are you listening to for what is the right choice if it's not the thinking?
Sorry, I didn't get your thinking part. What by which thinking? By what do you mean by that?
Well, you said at one point, you said, okay, I changed this without thinking.
Okay.
So not thinking. So what do you do if you're not thinking?
Okay. What I meant was, that's a good point that you clarified it. What I meant was that the day I knew that I have lost my interest in what I'm doing and the passion is gone, and I like something which is more passionate for me, I'm more passionate for it now. That thought was my decision maker of not thinking that should I linger on or should I hesitate, in other words, or should I give some, maybe I can do, because the biggest fear is the day I resigned from Shell, I had no job, no nothing, and I had 3 kids to feed. So the biggest fear is, how will I feed my family? Trust me, it's not a fear. It's a self-inflicted pain that we want to live in. Food money, they all will follow you if you follow your passion. And I give an example of when I talk about this thing, I give an example of one of my cousins. We all were engineers, doctors, everybody else. This one chap at that age decided to be an economist. Now I'm talking about 1980s and early 80s and mid 80s and late 80s, and everybody on the family was laughing on him. At that time, being an economist was not like the thing that you have today. Probably it's a better field now, So everybody was laughing. Ha! See, he couldn't get admission anywhere. We did not know. Little did we know that he refused to join any engineering university. He opted for being an economist, and he is one of the leading economists in the region, in the World Bank today. Because and I asked him, I said, why did you do this? He said, because I loved it. The first day I studied my economics book in O levels. I thought, this is what I want to do. This is what I am. So his passion has actually grown now, and he is still going on in his passion. He has never lost the passion. But there are people out there who get lost because of the daily grind. So that is what my point is. Stop thinking at that time that if you have decided, I have lost my interest, that should be the end of your thinking on moving to the next step. I hope.
And then you can start thinking about productive things.
Exactly. So I hope that answers your question. This is
what Richard calls using your brain for a change.
That's correct. That's correct. So my sincere advice to all those people, is follow your passion. Simple. Money will follow you. If you follow your passion, money will follow you. It's a secondary thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jasper, for your time. I think we have already
good piece of advice.
Yeah, I think we've already done. And in fact, as you mentioned, I'll just wrap the things up. As you mentioned that we are going to do a session hopefully in Dubai as well. Maybe if your audience wants to do career coaching session, I can look into that too.
I lost you there, but I think the people listening have been able to hear you. But
no, I can repeat that, no issues. What I said is that as you mentioned that we are going to do a session here in Dubai, and if your audience wants to have a session on careers in the Netherlands, that can also be arranged, and we can do like a Skype session, or I can come over. That's not an issue, as you like. So let's wrap it up. It was a very interesting discussion, Jasper. I'm really glad,
and I'm looking very much forward also to seeing you in Dubai and visiting you there. And I've never been yet, so I'm looking forward.
You are in for a big surprise, shock of your life. You will love the place.
Very good.
I wish you had come now. It's 46 degrees today. It was 46 degrees. But I would not have invited you. Otherwise, you will be like a roasted chicken.
I'll be over in I think November or October. We arranged, and I'm looking forward also to work with the people there, and to I really enjoy working with the different cultures across the world, and because the unconscious stuff works everywhere in the world.
That's true. So so let's wrap it up. Whoever is watching these videos, guys, it was more of knowing Jasper and knowing myself a little bit, and sharing some thoughts and ideas that we had. And I would like to thank you, Jasper, for your time. It was a very, very productive. I didn't even realize, actually, when I was talking to you, I just looked at the watch and we had finished 1 hour and 9 minutes. So that was
we did some time distortion here, didn't we?
Exactly. You are my teacher for time distortion, right?
And thanks for listening to this and watching it, because it was a long video. So I always commend the people that watch these things to the end. Those are usually the people that I like most, because I was one of those people that watched these types of videos till the end and watched them over and over again. And I would like to compliment you on finishing this video also all the way to the end.
That's true. It will be a long time. Okay. So thank you very much once again, and see you later, Insha.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.